Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dumi Jere, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Beat. I'm coming to you from Joburg in South Africa, and joining me from Dakar in Senegal, my beautiful sister Maggie Omutesi. Maggie, how are you doing?
Yes, Dumi. I'm doing great. It's August. It's the new month. Half of the year is already gone, so we're looking towards something better. And you know what happened today? It's the departure of the first grain shipment from Ukraine, and they're resuming grain trade. I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago when the UN Secretary General met with Russia and Ukraine to discuss how we can at least be able to trade and have prices of food come down. So we're hoping that, things are going to change in obviously this new half of the year. And we're looking towards a better summer. And how are you? Are you guys still in the dark? I feel like this is what I have to ask about every summer.
Well, at the present moment, we're not so much in the dark because there was a cold front, right? So when it was really cold, therefore there's a rise in demand of electricity. So of late there hasn't been any cold front, so that's good. So that has resulted in electricity sort of stabilizing. So unless systems break down or something, things should be stable-ish. I think let's put it that way.
Okay, stable.
Currently, in South Africa, we're actually fighting a bigger issue now. Like every other day, there's shootings going on.
Oh my God! You're becoming like America. Please don't be like America.
I'll relay the message to our president. Thank you.
Don't learn from America. We can be better citizens. And it's interesting how the world is, how things are folding this month. I'm also excited about this month because of the Kenyan election, which I hope we can.
One. I'm sure we'll talk about it in the next episode.
Yeah, and it's happening next week, and every time I wake up, it's up to the news of this is happening, this is happening. It's one of those big economies we're looking at in different ways. FDIs, if you're talking about startups and business, you're looking at Kenya. So it's interesting. So this month for me is quite interesting, and happy new month to everyone listening to us from all over the world. I'm super excited.
Indeed, I can tell. It sounds like your plans for 2022 are on track.
I feel like the plans for 2022 always come in the second half. Like my year is always better towards the end. Not to say that I'm one of those people. Yeah, you go slowly like Mercedes, and then towards the end, then you pick up momentum.
You put it in sport, and then it just goes. Yeah. Oh man, it's funny you were speaking about America. Lot has been going on the continent. I'm sure you've also been noticing. So it seems America is paying so much attention to Africa, and who else? I hear France has also been not globetrotting, but continent troping on our continent. It's been continent and what's the foreign minister for Russia, Lavrov?
Yes.
He's also been very active on the African continent. On the one hand, it actually tells me that as Africa, we are super powerful. And in case any of us Africans ever thought that we don't matter, you need to rethink that position, because we do matter to the world. If we didn't matter, then they'll just move on. They wouldn't even care about any of us. But the fact that all of these countries are paying attention, that means there's something in it. There's something important and something special that we hold. And it's up to us to really know our worth, and use our worth to the fullest of its advantage. Okay, I'm beginning to sound like a pastor now, but it's fine. Let me. So yeah, Maggie. Today, I think let's just pick on one of the countries, right? Let's talk Russia. Of course, there's earlier on you were excited about today being 1 August. That means in 4 months' time, there is the Russia-Africa Summit scheduled for November 2022 in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And I've always been asking myself, why is Russia so involved or so interested in us? And I mean, I could only reason that, it's almost like Russia is stepping up its campaign, to move closer and closer to the African countries and, pivot away from the West due to perhaps the West's extreme sanctions that they impose, particularly on Russia as well. I mean, I remember a clip, and folks, we'll post this clip on on our TikTok. There was a clip of the then Zimbabwean president, Robert Mugabe, and the current Russian president, Vladimir Putin. And so Robert Mugabe starts by saying, "We have sanctions, and you also have sanctions." And then they both just smile. So it's almost like, countries that are united by by something that's going on with the West.
Yeah, with the West, yeah.
In what position does this put us? I'm just thinking, and I sort of am in two minds about this. On the one hand, I mean, earlier on you mentioned that there's a shipment of grain that has departed from Ukraine. And on the one hand, I'm like, but we are the continent with 60% of the world's arable land. Why are we still depending on other people for grain? Like, surely we should be able to be self-sufficient by now. On the one hand, on the other hand, you're like, okay, all of these that are going on in Russia, and Russia recognizing that Africa is very important to its developmental agenda. At the end of the day, where does that leave us? I don't know. What is your take on this thing?
I mean, it's very interesting that you bring that up, but obviously we matter. Africa matters after all. You can't have all these world leaders in just 1 week touring West, Central, Southeast, and you think we just I saw a story of CNN saying Russia is trying to get gold from Sudan and all of that. But again, some of these stories lately, you want to read them with a bit of caution. Because there's a lot of propaganda also when it comes to the media. I mean, not to say that whatever is happening is not true, but I think there's got to be some bit of balance in reporting, and I don't want to dwell on that as much. But in terms of like having Russia come to Africa, I mean, Dumi, if you remember, you might recall that 25 African countries abstained or didn't vote during the UN General Assembly resolution condemning Russia's invasion on Ukraine. And it spoke a lot. I mean, that alone for me was I think it also shook the world. Like, people were a bit shocked. Where are these countries? And because people expected Africa not to have a voice, because you have these colonial countries that think they own you at some point. If they say you go that way, you have to go. But the times have changed. It's no longer about being a colonial power, but it's about partnerships and equality and fairness in terms of trade, in terms of human rights. And it's what the president of Rwanda keeps saying. You're talking about violating human rights. What about you? I mean, first look into yourself before coming to condemn us. Go see what you've done in Iraq, or go see what you've done all over the world before you come to tell us that, So don't lecture people what you can't lecture to your own people. You're talking about all of this, and then you have gun control out of, guns all over your streets, and you come to lecture us. So it's going to change, and the times are changing. For me, I feel like it's a new dawn that is quite exciting. I think for Africa, it's what we keep saying on this podcast many times. We've said we have to realize our value in terms of resources, in terms of the population. Dumi, you have the youngest population in the entire world. I think they say of every 5 people, 2 are Africans. I don't even remember, but 1 is an African. Like, you have a young population, you have a big population. Besides it being young, it's big. All this consumer power.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a vast of resources that are still, underdeveloped, still being exploited. All of this is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
These countries don't even, have uranium, but they have all of this, and it's because of Africa. Like, we've been literally supplying the entire world, but we have barely done a lot, anything for ourselves. And I was listening to the speech from the Russian president when he was in Uganda, rather the Russian foreign minister when he was in Uganda, and
Yeah.
he said,
Yeah.
he reiterated the fact that there is lack of representation in the UN Security Council for Africans, which means he's also saying it's high time you guys actually had a place. It's beyond just looking at Africa as a small player, but it's a big continent, and it brings so much to the world. And historically, if you go back, and I think this was one also the things they were talking about, was how Russia played, the Soviet Union played a big role in terms of liberation
The
back in the
liberation
day.
movements. Yep. South
Yeah,
Africa,
especially in
Zimbabwe,
Mozambique,
Mozambique.
Zimbabwe,
Yep.
Angola, and much as the population now might be young and never grew up in the 60s, we're still being led by these guys that actually led the movements from Uganda, because I think the president was in Mozambique and all of that, to
Yeah.
Angola and
Yeah.
everything. So there's that bit of loyalty, and I think also powers are changing, but I don't know. Dumi, what do
I
you
mean,
think?
when you look at it from like you mentioned that there are 25 countries that abstained. I mean, of course, one of the countries would have been South Africa, right? And South Africa is part of BRICS, and BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So, what, you expecting me to vote against my ally, my person who helps me? And on Russia's side, in any case, it almost feels like Russia is looking for good relations with Africa
Yes.
from a commercial perspective, to say, because the US has imposed sanctions, or they don't want to buy whatever Russia was producing. So now Russia almost now needs new
A
customers
new
to buy its
market.
energy. And we've been complaining about energy in Africa, then, well, we might as well buy from we might as well buy from Russia. The fact that there's a shipment that we are celebrating that it left today, it means we still need grain from there. We still need lots of other commodities from there. So for me, that's where Russia is coming from. And then, so that's probably like the commercial side. And then when you look at it from a political side, it's almost like Russia now is looking for like a new political dimension to then
Alliance.
say,
Yeah.
to then say, well, US has been behaving like a head boy for too long. Now it's our turn to also gain international recognition of our Russian regime. We have the commodities, we've got the technology in some sectors, so, for example, like nuclear power and stuff. And with so many other African countries needing these things, therefore they're going to become willing partners.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then, I mean, obviously, the point that you're making about them always helping, of course, it's just a continuation now. Russia has
And I
always
mean,
provided assistance. Yeah, go on.
and I mean, for Africa also, this is where I always feel, how a lot of countries feel like, oh, how do we still live in the past? Like, you've got to create new friendships, new partnerships. This is
Yeah.
why you've seen China over the years increasing its influence across the continent, and you haven't seen any African country really shying away from that, much as even still through these partnerships, we still have a couple of issues when it comes to date or negotiations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The chance that you actually have options is a very big step, I think. And think about it, Dumi. We are creating the largest trade area since
Yeah.
the WTO.
Yes. Yes.
You're
Yes.
becoming a bloc. You're going to be trading 54 countries instead of small blocks or small countries, which means you have this huge massive potential, and
Yeah.
any global player sees that, knows that. Because Dumi, you need to dress people, you need to manufacture. So we need people to set up factories. We need electricity that is going to manufacture those goods that we need. We need to light up the continent, we need
Mm-hmm.
all of these things, and this takes investment, this takes partnerships, this take a lot. So when you think about it that way, the global players know there's a part to play in Africa's development, because unlike the West, we still have a long way to go in terms of catching up. And that also gives us an opportunity. For me, I always say, to create, innovate, or do it our way. We don't have to follow the same model, but there's a chance to actually do our own model. And it's exciting. I just hope we understand our value and what we have in terms of, what to give to the rest of the world. My only problem is that, will the leadership really take advantage of this?
I can't. It's just that I can't quite remember which episode it was, but there's a statement that you made in one of the recordings that one of the podcasts, where you were like, "We can't really blame the rest of the world. We have to blame our own leaders and their negotiating power. Like, if you negotiate a bad deal, then why should we? We shouldn't really turn around and blame the next country. We
Oh, that
should
was
blame our
China.
own." Oh yeah,
That
it was
was
China.
China. Everybody loves to blame China, really. Oh, China has taken all our factories. Oh, China is shipping in all their workers. I mean, who's giving them permits? Who's negotiating these deals to build the railways?
It's our people. It's our
It's our
leaders.
people. And then we come and cry, oh, China. Oh, by the way, China. Oh, by the way, China is buying our city. But who's your mayor? Who's your president? I mean, I don't know.
But yeah,
By the way, Africa needs to get serious. I mean, we need to get serious. I just feel like the rest of the world can't take us serious if we're not even taking ourselves serious.
Of course.
Even having like 3 world leaders come at the same time, because when Lavrov was in Africa, Macron was in Africa, and the US was also in Africa, and then it was like, oh, you guys are coming at the same time. So it's like, you're going, I'm gonna go. So, and then you have the UK Africa Summit in October, and you have all these.
We've got the Turkey Africa Summit. Like, everyone is realizing that
Everybody.
Africa is a big player.
You're a big player, and until you know that, the world is just gonna keep, and it's like the world knows that, but we don't know it yet.
Yeah.
They know our value, but we don't, or we don't really care that much. I can't say we don't really care. I think we do. I think we've made strides. I think even the AfCFTA and some countries like Rwanda, countries that are stepping up, we can see progress. But there's so much more to do, and we don't have such a big window. We have a limited window, really. We need to get it right. We need to get it right.
Of course, because there's a lot at stake. If you rewind maybe about 6 years or so ago, the exports were around $8 billion US from Russia. And imports to Russia from Africa were about 2 billion or less. Today, we currently have Russian exports to Africa worth $14 billion a year, and the import side about $5 billion. So things have been doubling since about 2015 or 2016 or so, representing almost like an average annual growth of, I don't know, call it 15 or so percent. With the way things are looking in the world right now, there is potential for more, for us to even double these numbers from 14 million to 28 million, and from 5 billion to, billion, sorry, or from 5 billion to like 10 billion in terms of imports that Russia has. So it's really up to us to take advantage of these things. Russia is heavily involved in our oil and gas industries, but they've also been investing in infrastructure, with Russia providing, key railway equipment for Egypt, which would explain why they would make a stop in Egypt as well. And so, for our leaders, to those that listen to the podcast and that have access to the leaders, please deliver a message to us from the weekly bit that can they please recognize their power and negotiate better terms, and just realize that they are more powerful than they think they are. Like, whatever they think they are much more than that. And from an investment perspective, there's lots more that still needs to be done, and lots more why Russia is looking toward Africa. Russia currently is in the process of establishing a 5 billion e-commerce trade portal with African countries. They're targeting countries, for example, like Nigeria as a growth market. Russia has got a what do you call this? A naval base at Port of Sudan, and many other things. So these are things to be on the lookout for. Watch out for these things, and really place yourself in a position where, as soon as these things take off, as soon as some of these agreements are signed in November at Russia Africa Summit, you are in pole position to actually take advantage of some of these opportunities, because Russia has got lots of money, and Russia is looking for new customers and new clients to buy their things. They want people to buy their things. They also want a market to sell their things. So hey, win-win is trade. Just find out what it is, and stay in the sidelines, ready to to get on the to get on the field and play the game. All right, Maggie, we're gonna have to leave it here for this week. Thank you, folks, for tuning in to this episode of the Weekly Beat. Truly appreciate. And please also have a look at our newsletter, The Third Opinion. We also wrote a snippet about what this particular topic that we're speaking about, Russia and Africa relations, what that could mean, or what could be the likely scenarios. We also wrote about that. If you miss anything or would like to stay up to date with what's going on the continent, please log on to our website, www.mansamedia.africa, or follow us on our social media pages. From me in South Africa and Maggie in Dakar, here's to peace and profit.